Mr. X or Nemesis? That's the question a lot of Resident Evil fans have been debating, especially after the release of the TGA 2018 Resident Evil 2 Remake Mr. X gameplay trailer, where it featured Mr. X in a terrifying new light, showcasing to us Resident Evil 2 fans that this remake version of the Tyrant is no one to be trifled with. But with all the highlights and praise that Mr. X has gotten these past couple of weeks, we almost have to look back and see how this new version of Mr. X would compare to one of Resident Evil's most iconic monsters, Nemesis, the Tyrant who was nightmare fuel for all Resident Evil fans, the Tyrant who had us question whether we'll be safe in any area in Resident Evil 3 due to him stalking you throughout the game. So in this video, we're going to be covering both Mr. X and Nemesis, where we cover aspects like how they affect the plot, to their in-game battle trace, and to their overall impact to the Resident Evil series. Anyways, what is up you guys, this is DeVuH, and I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who's enjoyed my past couple of Resident Evil videos, where I cover topics comparing Mr. X and William Birkin. So if you guys want a quick analysis of Mr. X and William Birkin, I'll leave a card for the video on the top right section of your screen so you guys can check it out. But anyways, with all the hype that surrounded Mr. X, and with all these new features in the new Resident Evil 2 remake, it's safe to assume that we can make a good comparison between him and Nemesis. But before we compare the two Tyrants, let's do a quick rundown of Mr. X and see what he's all about. So Mr. X was showcased recently with all the gameplay trailers from TGA 2018, and we got to see him ramp up the horror aspect for this new Resident Evil 2 remake, where the first thing we notice with him is his paranoia-inducing footsteps, where we the players can hear him stomp those heavy boots of his throughout the RPD station, giving us tension throughout the gameplay trailer as we see Claire being stalked by this Tyrant through the many sections of the police station. Also seeing Mr. X not limited by any doorways or stairs, who's always in his never-ending pursuit of us players. But the good news is that we can hear Mr. X's footsteps getting louder and louder as he gets close by, so that'll be a good in-game strategy for us players to help us avoid Mr. X. Also, he doesn't seem to be affected much by a lot of our weapons, because we see Mr. X get shot by Claire many times, ranging from her handgun, submachine gun, and to her grenade launcher. You can rest easy for a little bit though, because we found out through some Ada Wong gameplay that we can keep Mr. X at bay if we shoot him on the face. This causes the Tyrant to stagger just enough so that we may be able to maneuver around or away from him so that we can get to safety. But it's better to keep our distance because Mr. X marches faster and faster towards you as he gets closer. There was also footage of Mr. X taking a knee after being bombarded with enough bullets, but this strategy may seem in vain because in these footages, we see Mr. X stand back up shortly after and he's up again trying to chase after you. Another amazing feature from Mr. X that we've observed was that he seems to be attracted to gunshot sounds, so it's best to always be careful of our surroundings when shooting zombies or lickers alike. But with all these highlights of Mr. X, showcasing him to be such a terror for the new Resident Evil 2 remake, we have to look back and see the monster that pioneered many aspects to this new Mr. X's traits, and see why Nemesis was one of the foundations that makes today's Mr. X such a terrifying tyrant. Making his debut in Resident Evil 3, Nemesis was a quick hit with Resident Evil fans around the world, where Nemesis was featured to be this massive and hulking tyrant that, similar to Mr. X, seems hell-bent on trying to catch and kill the player. But this time, Nemesis is equipped to be a much more challenging and terrifying monster to deal with in Resident Evil 3, where he's able to sprint and chase after the player in speeds like no other, because in the original and remake of Mr. X, we can still outrun the Tyrant, but with Nemesis, that strategy may not be the best solution all the time, because regardless of how far we run away from him, regardless of the distance, Nemesis seems to always be able to catch up to us players, making sure to emphasize to us that we can never be safe in any area in Resident Evil 3. Also similar to Mr. X, Nemesis is not limited by the doorways or walls as well. I'd like to think that the devs for Resident Evil 3 took notes from the original Resident Evil 2, but ran away with it and ramped up the pace with Nemesis. Seeing him undeterred by any doors or windows, breaking into the RPD station with his sole objective is to hunt you down. If that's not enough, how about giving this roided version of Mr. X, Nemesis, a rocket launcher, so it can make a statement that no matter what you do, you're going to be having a challenging time against this monster. But with all the features that Nemesis showcases, it's odd that one of the scariest aspects to him is him being off screen. What I mean by this is during our gameplay of Resident Evil 3, we usually get a very ominous soundtrack playing in the background when Nemesis is nearby. It almost makes you dread to move your character forward or traverse into the next area, because the next thing you know, we may hear Nemesis come through the door and roaring. It's these subtle moments in Resident Evil 3 that made you have nightmares playing this game, knowing that Nemesis may be just around the other side of the door, waiting for you to open it so that he can finally finish his mission and eliminating you. But as I play Resident Evil 3, I'd like to think that Nemesis was developed by the devs using Mr. X as his foundation, in terms of him chasing you throughout the game, unhindered by doorways or walls, and is always in constant pursuit of the player regardless of the situation. Other similarities that both these tyrants have are their way of making an impact with the plot of their respective Resident Evil title, where we see Mr. X chase after you until you reach the Umbrella's secret lab in the original Resident Evil 2, and we see him inadvertently trigger the self-destruct system after slamming Ada Wong on the computer console. Whereas Nemesis in Resident Evil 3 is one of the driving forces that has the player continually attempt to escape Raccoon City, where we see Nemesis fight against Mikhail in the cable car to him destroying an escape helicopter at the clock tower. Also, both tyrants are similar that they both are very resistant to a lot of our weapons, needing substantial amount of ammo to cause them to be unconscious for a short while. But both tyrants share the same characteristics of standing back up after a brief moment. Another trait that both Mr. X and Nemesis has is that they aren't deterred by any other monsters that surround him, where we see Mr. X shove a zombie to his side, with his sole goal is to catch and kill Claire, whereas Nemesis is not hindered by the many zombies around him. He's able to hit him with his rocket launcher or swipe them until they're dead. Also, both Mr. X and Nemesis sport their respective trenchcoat limiters that provide them protection against certain weapons, but they also have the characteristic of preventing the tyrants from further mutation. But once released from their limiter, both Mr. X and Nemesis become a more potent version of themselves. With Mr. X now from the original Resident Evil 2 having claws and superhuman speed, he's able to go against either Leon or Claire with much more intensity. Not being held back by anything, he's now able to slash you from a distance. Whereas with Nemesis, the tentacles that were bound by his limiter is now in full view, where he's able to pick up the players and swing them around like a rag doll, or use them as a way to drag Jill or Carlos closer to him so that he can perform his finishing move. Overall, both tyrants are able to showcase their traits, like resisting an arsenal of bullets or weapons, to their ability to chase after you regardless of how far you are, to their overall impact in the game. But with the upcoming Resident Evil 2 remake just around the corner, there has been a lot of speculation in regards to the development of Resident Evil 3 Remake. But if Capcom does decide to remake Resident Evil 3, one can only assume how amazing Nemesis will be. From the trends that we've seen Mr. X go through from his previous incarnation, we can assume that Nemesis will also get a huge upgrade in its new remakes version, probably in terms of adding more terror to the tyrant that we've never seen before, maybe seeing him run faster and faster where he's able to move objects aside trying to chase after you. But for now, those are all speculations, but hey, one can still imagine. So if you guys have any theories or comments in regards to Nemesis or the development of Resident Evil 3, please share them on the comment section down below. I'd love to hear everyone's opinion on this topic. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my quick analysis and comparison of Mr. X and Nemesis, and seeing how both these tyrants make their respective Resident Evil titles an instant classic. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my content. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I usually post every weekend, so stay tuned in for more Resident Evil content. Also, if you guys are interested in different games like Devil May Cry or Castlevania, please feel free to check those videos out on my channel. I'd really appreciate all your support. Again, thank you so much for watching my full video. But anyways, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is Hey DeVuH signing out.